Everybody, you got your main man, Anthony Brogdon. I'm coming at you from where I'm at, and where you are. We are together today because I got a guy on the channel that I know you're gonna like what he's got to say. Let me tell you, he's sharp today. He got the bow tie tied correctly. He got
no clip-ons, no clip-on,
dude. That's pretty good. That's how conscious he is. He didn't even get the clip on. He know how to tie a bow tie. He's ready to give you this good Black history, this good history that comes out of his area. And he talks about it to a lot of people often. You're going to hear the story. So do this, my friends. Hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations, where we give it to you straight, no chaser. And we I let them do the talking. I might, and I say I try my best to ask intelligent questions so that we get to the heart of the topic, and then they come up and take it from there. Now, did you see the video I did with the lady who talks about that school? Prudence Crandall was in Connecticut, and in Connecticut, and what happened was the lady had the school. She was teaching students, and it was a white-only school. Now, at the time, this is, I guess, at the 1900s, some point. I forget all that, but look at the video. And then a Black student get caught up, get into school. Other people hear about it, say, hey, I can't have that for whatever reason. And then they say, okay, I'm pulling my students out. She says, all right, do that. And then she went with an all-Black student body, and they got so mad at her, they closed her down in 17 months.
Yeah.
Watch that video. How about this one? Did you see the one? I'm staying on the educational component. Did you see the one of the school down in Charleston, South Carolina? It was a private school in the 1800s that lasted a bunch of years. I can't tell you the name of it offhand. I'm getting old, everybody. But nonetheless, look for that video. Look for the video where the lady talks about all that the people went through, African Americans, to learn and get an education and the threat of such. Look for that video. The gentleman that's coming on the channel, he is a part of another video of a lady that we did out of that area. The one I talked about, the Prudence Crandall, and what happened with some of the students and the founder and so on and so forth. I guess I got it right, but look at Strong Inspirations. That's what I'm telling you, everybody. We are international. I give you an international one. We did one with a guy out of Cameroon, Africa, who says that he follows and studies it so much, Black history, that he found where the people of his community went in the slave trade, the tribes, and he documents this. Watch that video. Did you see the one I just did with the guy that was sleeping in the slave cabin? And they had Wi-Fi, and we interviewed him. Watch that video.
Wow.
So we jamming here. You're gonna like this guy right here. He's very conscious. Let me tell you a couple more things. I do have a documentary out called Business in the Black. It's streaming on Amazon. It's very good. Not just because I did it, but I had a bunch of people tell me that. Business in the Black, on the rise of Black business in America. I took it to 40 cities on my own dime. Did not have a sponsor. I had a lot of fun along the way. Went as far as Seattle, Washington, and I'm in Detroit. And all through the California area, all through the East Coast area, all throughout the South, spewing this good knowledge, like Johnny Appleseed. And then from there, I wrote a book. Get you a copy of my book. I need to sell a lot of them, only because, well, I like to, because I want you to have this knowledge. It's called Black Business Book, but I want to because let me let y'all know on a little something else, my friends. I'm doing a movie. I'm producing it. I wrote the script. I'm directing it. It's called Foot Soldiers. It's about a teenager growing up without his father, and a mentor steps in his life. And I need to raise more money on that. I'll just be perfectly honest with you. It's good. Foot Soldiers, watch for that. That'll be out in the next 4 months or so. So everything that I do and how you can support it and so on and so forth is on my website, businessintheblack.net. Now, you hear me tell that word strong a lot. Strong is my favorite word. I just like the word strong. I do. It stands for a lot, which is a part of, it stands for what this gentleman, my next guest, is all about. He's a strong man. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that's my introduction to the guy on the channel with the bow tie.
Wow.
Come on and introduce yourself. Let's get it on. Thank you for being
Holy
on Strong
Moses.
Inspirations.
Wow, that was great. Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me on. My name is Bob Farwell, and I am the director of the Otis Library, which is the public library serving Norwich, the city of Norwich, Connecticut. Now, I know that Norwich probably isn't all that well known across the country. So let me give you a little background on our community, and hopefully that'll help you understand some of the challenges that we face and the communities that we serve within Norwich. Norwich is a city of about 40,000 people. In Connecticut, the share of the Black population is about 10%. Now, in our county, which is New London County, it's about 5%. In the city of Norwich, it is about 11%. We're comparatively speaking, a very diverse community.
Let me ask you a couple questions about yourself. And so where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in the town of Mystic, which is on the coast. It's about 15 miles from Norwich.
Now, with that said, and I mean no disrespect in this, that town, as you said, Norwich is probably one of the more Afrocentric towns in the Connecticut area, along with probably Hartford. I would suspect. I've been to Hartford. What is your town that you grew up in? Was that predominantly a white town?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was. There were actually, I could probably name the 2 African-American families that lived in Mystic when I was growing up.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. So as a result of that, you didn't hear Black history in grade school and that kind of thing for the most part?
No. The only person that I can remember hearing about, and it wasn't even in the context of Black history, there were 2, Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver.
Right.
Those are the 2 that came up in the course of history classes.
With that said, how did you get to be the kind of guy you are, to be conscious like this, to even recognize Black history as you do, and even talk about Black people, let's say? What happened? Did something click in you to make you a nice guy, let's say?
I don't know. It depends. You have to, it depends on who you talk to, whether they'll say I'm a nice guy or not.
Yeah, sure.
But, I'll tell you, a lot of it was, I think my longstanding interest in history. And one of the things that struck me, on my mother's side, my family is Irish. And I always thought about how different ethnic groups ought to have more empathy with the state of say African Americans, Latinos, and others because of their own experiences. I mean, being an Irishman in 1850 coming to this country was traumatic, and
Okay.
that we
Okay, I
ought
love
to,
it.
yeah, and we ought to be empathetic enough to understand that experience is also reflected in the experiences of other peoples.
Sure. Okay, let me go with that for a minute. Let me say this, because I have a lady on the channel who is from Ireland, and the uniqueness of Irish history is that they were prejudiced against by Europeans, and for some reason I didn't understand. Do you know what that dynamic, why they didn't like them? Just because they were someplace different or something?
They were different. They were, in especially within the British community, it was a strongly Catholic country. They were very resistant to colonization. They tried to exert their independence and repeatedly throughout the centuries, and were persecuted because of that.
Yes, okay. I knew there was something to it, because she says that there will be signs, no blacks and no Irish.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Did and so growing up, you knew of some of those stories of how you all were prejudiced against, let's say.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that helped when I was preparing for high school, rather than go to a school in the town I grew up in, I went and lived with my aunt and my grandmother in New Haven. Okay. And New Haven is like Hartford, it's a very diverse community. Yeah. So you got to interact with people, and you got to move beyond the idea of them and us.
Yes.
That phrases like, that's what they do, that's what they go, that's what they believe, and you begin to meet people as individuals.
Yes.
And that makes a big difference.
Let me ask you this, and since you are who you are, and you seem to be able to take it, if you could imagine, let's say back in the day during slavery, a person like you could have been an abolitionist.
Yep. Very likely.
You could you have been? How staunch could you have been? Because like John Brown was the most staunch of them all, let's say. But there were middle grounds of people who really just did not feel good about the treatment of Black people, even though, and we have people on the channel who says, I didn't like the treatment, but I still didn't want to live next to him. You know what I mean? There was that dynamic. So I'd rather have a person say, I'd rather not live next to you and still help you, but you have your own community. There's a whole lot of something to that.
Yeah, I'm knowing the way I try to, frankly, the way I try to live my life, I certainly would have been involved in demonstrations and activities. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. When you run against someone, you at the not dinner table, you at the, let's say younger days, you might still do it now, you at the bar, let's say, and one of the guys, and it's everybody is of the same ethnicity, and one of the guys says something that is disparaging. Do you say, hey, hold on, let me tell you the truth about that matter? Or just not say anything because you know what really happened? Let's say if somebody says something about the Prudence Crandall School and you know what really happened, do you sometimes speak up and say, oh, let me just give you a little bit of more information?
Yeah, I mean, I tried, I tried to do that without antagonizing the person.
I got you, right.
Right. I mean, I'm 6 foot, 150 pounds. So,
right.
Yeah, bar scenes, I'm not getting,
Yeah, right. Sure.
but
Sure.
if I can make the point without disparaging the individual, I will do that.
I love it.
Rather than say, look, are you an idiot?
Right. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
And
I got it. And so there's Black history in Connecticut.
mhm.
And before we get to the story of the school and the ladies, do you know of some of those stories that you can share of what has happened there?
Sure. Well, yeah, I actually, just to take it back a few years. One of the things that also affected my interest in African American history was my undergraduate thesis in college, which was on the role of Black labor in the Confederate war effort.
You chose that topic.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And it was a revelation. I mean, the fortifications, the construction, the manufacturing. There were so many places where Black men and women were absolutely instrumental in were forced to be part of the war effort because of their status. I mean, building fortifications. There are loads of records about Black men, in particular, being farmed out to the Confederate government to build the fortifications that they needed, working on ironclad ships that needed to be built. They didn't have a choice. That was their fate in that particular instance. And amongst the things I got to do at the time, because there was no internet, I was able to get hard copies of a project that was done in the 30s by the Work Progress Administration, which were interviews with Black men and women in different states who had been raised in slavery. And those were just amazing. Just amazing to hear the stories.
Yeah.
So that, I continued to develop that interest. Now, when you get to New England, and I also have a very deep interest in just the history of African Americans in New England. Again, there were so many contributions that just never were accentuated in popular history. And I can cite those. I know something about Connecticut, but I'm more of a generalist. So,
okay, give us a couple that kind of blew your mind.
Oh yeah, well,
stories.
here, Frederick Douglass. Here's Frederick Douglass. I mean, I think if people know a name from the 19th century, aside from Harriet Tubman, they recognize Frederick Douglass.
Sure.
Frederick Douglass, born on the Eastern Shore, Maryland, where I happened to attend college, escapes. He ends up he was a skilled craftsman in maritime trades. He ends up in New Bedford, and he is
New Bedford, Connecticut.
Massachusetts,
right.
The world's biggest whaling port.
Right.
And he tries to get a job. He's a caulker, which is, it helps bind the ship, the caulking, make sure that it doesn't leak.
Right.
He tried to get a position there. He was given a job by a member of the Quaker community, which was deeply involved in the abolition movement.
Right.
And he wasn't allowed to practice his trade because the white workers went out on strike. Here's Frederick Douglass, an articulate, a great man. You think you'd be honored to work alongside somebody like that.
Right.
Can you imagine the experience?
Right.
But his color gets in the way.
Right.
Doesn't matter that he's a good craftsman.
Yeah, sure.
Couple of, just to plumb that a little bit further.
Sure.
In the 19th century, there was a very large shipbuilding industry in the New Bedford area.
Sure.
There was a fellow by the name of John Mashow. Now, his antecedents were in South Carolina, but he migrated up north, an African-American shipbuilder. He built arguably the most beautiful whaling ship ever constructed.
Really?
Yeah. It was called the Concordia. I
heard that name before, though. Concordia.
Yeah, you probably have. It's used. I know there's a Concordia shipbuilders. Now, if memory serves, and I will plead the fifth on this one because I haven't looked it up in a while. But one of the ironic things about him producing that ship was that it was one of the vessels that was captured and burned by a Confederate raider, a Confederate warship that was out on the seas hunting down Union cargo ships and things of that sort and destroying them, burning them. And I think the Concordia was one of the ships that fell victim to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was a tremendous ship, as you say.
It was a beautiful ship. There were line drawings of it and sketches, and it looked like a clipper ship. It looked like one of those wonderful fast vessels that that kind of resonates with people if you say wooden ship. That's a clipper ship.
Okay.
There were entirely black-owned whaling ships.
Yeah, really?
Sailing from New England, from New Bedford. One in particular called the Rising States, which was owned by members of the Black community in New Bedford. It was its rig was what they call a brig, and it sailed for several years from New Bedford, entirely owned and crewed by the Black community.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, hold on, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
And now give me one more, and then we get to your story. What does whaling mean? What is that? What do you do when you're whaling?
Now, you see, there I go making assumptions about what people recognize. This is in the 18th, 19th century, hunting whales was our principal source of oil until the discovery of petroleum oil in Pennsylvania.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So if you were thinking, what was the oil industry in the 19th century? It was whaling, and it was used for everything. It was lubricants, lighting, all kinds of products came from whale. There was a product from a certain kind of whale called baleen, which they have for filtering out the small creatures that they eat. It's very flexible. It's the same material that your hair and fingernails are made out of. And it was the 19th century version of plastics.
Oh, really? Okay.
If you see photographs of the New Bedford waterfront in the 19th century, you see these, it almost looks like palm fronds, palm leaves waving in the wind, stuck into the ground. Those are pieces of baleen. The baleen could be in a whale's mouth as long as, well, I'm 6 foot, they could be as long as I am tall.
Really? Okay, I understand.
Yep.
I understand. Okay, that's whaling. All right. Now, as I alluded to earlier, the story, cited by the lady of the school, the Prudence Crandall.
Yeah.
Can you start us, just shortly at the beginning, and then that will lead into what you want to, what we're talking about, what you are doing, so on and so forth.
I can speak directly to how. Let me speak directly to how Otis Library became involved with Prudence Crandall, because it's kind of an interesting story.
Sure.
A number of years ago, members of the staff were looking for ways to honor members of the Norwich community who were exemplary people, had made contributions to the history of the area. And, I think Prudence Crandall is our state heroine. But in the course of doing that work, we discovered that two of the young African-American women who attended Prudence Crandall's school were from Norwich.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so they were the Harris sisters.
Okay, now hold on. I don't mean no disrespect. Back up. So people don't have to look at the other video. The Prudence Scandal School is what? Give us a little history on that.
Yeah,
And
it was, as you were saying, it was originally founded to be it was a private school for young white women.
Yes.
Prudence Crandall changed that to be to accept young African American women.
And this is what years? What years is this?
Be back, oh boy.
It's 1800s? Is this 18? It's 1800s. Okay, this is even during slavery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's
of course, it had been abolished. It had been abolished in Connecticut.
Yes.
But yes, in the slave states.
Okay.
It was still
right. Okay.
It was still the status quo.
Right.
So this was in a little town. She did this in a little town called Canterbury, and it wasn't well received. The school was burned. There were numerous attempts to intimidate the members of the school, the students, and finally the school had to close. But Prudence Crandall certainly deserves the accolades that she's received for what she did.
Right.
We were interested in the Harris sisters and specifically, and it turned out that that this was not a singular event in their life. They both went on to be very active in the abolition movement, to advocate for minority rights. They and their family, in the area was quite prominent. Not to belabor whaling, but
yes.
One of the Harris sisters married a man who became a mate on a local whaling ship out of New London. And we had a program a few months ago in which they read excerpts from the journal he kept on that voyage. And as I'm implying, he was also an African American.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I'm not as well versed as probably some of the folks you've spoken to about the particulars of some of these individual histories.
Sure.
Because as I said, it's a more general interest of mine to encourage and make sure people have access to the information.
Sure.
But it's a shame in a way that we're only now, in many ways, only getting this history, because it would have been a much more honest history if we'd had the inclusion of not only, African Americans, but also all the minority communities who were present in our area.
Sure. Now, is this the case? Was one of the Harris sisters the first Black students that she had? Isn't that it?
Yeah, they were amongst the first. I don't know if they were the first or they were in that first group of students who attended school there. And I think one of them stayed locally. One of them went and lived in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But they never lost their interest in, I guess, what eventually became called civil rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have photos of them on display, that kind of thing? Are there photos of them?
There are photos of them. We have photos. Every year we have a whole month devoted to the Harris sisters that's sponsored by the library in conjunction with the Prudence Crandall House. So we have different speakers come in. We get into, this year we studied the role of Black women in the suffrage movement. So we've been expanding, sort of expanding the context. The Harris sisters are the core, but what are some of the other movements that that are instrumental in understanding the contributions of the Black community in the state of Connecticut?
When were the Harris sisters at the school when it had to finally close, or they got the chance to graduate, that kind of thing?
Yeah, they did go on. They were both they both were very well educated, which in itself, was a difficult prospect for
Sure.
members of the African American community. But they were both well educated. They made a point of being vocal in their beliefs as well.
Sure.
So again, they were exemplary people.
Sure.
And should have been part of what we learned about back in the day, to coin a phrase.
Do you all know where their house was?
I know that there are people who do.
Okay.
And they, one of the other events we had was a walking tour, and they had a home in New London, and they were on the tour, they were able to locate where the home was.
Oh, okay. What about Prudence Crandall? What eventually happened to her when she had to close the school? Do you know that?
I don't know a lot about her personal history. I have to be honest about that.
Where is the library in relation to her school?
Oh, we're Norwich. We are inland. We're about 15 miles inland from Long Island Sound. Her school would have been another 20, probably 20 miles inland.
Okay.
Canterbury is not near the coast. It's more towards the interior of southeastern Connecticut.
When you spoke of the month, is that Black History Month that you do this, or is it another month?
That's another month. It's April. We chose April, and it's become a regular feature in Norwich.
When you say regular feature, what does that mean? Why April? First of all, is that their birth date? Anything significant about
I think it had to do with their birthdays.
Okay.
It's so long ago. Once you get to 70, things start to fade.
Sure. Couple more. So when you do this, people kind of look forward to coming out. I mean, you've done it so many years that it's now a regular staple of something to do at the library.
Yeah, it's been recognized by the state too, by
oh really?
Yeah, by proclamation. I have that in the administrative offices. So yes, it's something that we've been able to sustain it through COVID. That didn't put a dent in making a contribution to the Harris sisters story.
Have you all been able to find any of their descendants?
Actually, one of their descendants lives outside of Chicago.
Oh, really?
And she joins us on Zoom.
Okay.
And her daughter was in Norwich this past weekend because they have they funded a mural on one of the local buildings.
Oh,
and
really?
there was a portrait of one of the Harris sisters that was painted onto the wall as part of the mural, and it was this young lady who was the model.
Okay, let me ask you this. These questions keep popping in mind. Why the Harris sisters? Why them instead of any other student?
Because they were specifically from Norwich.
Oh, okay. But then I guess maybe just a little bit further.
Yeah.
But are they the most famous students from the school? Are there others that have people do research?
They may. Those are, again, quite honestly, because they were from Norwich, those are the ones we focused on.
Yeah.
But certainly, you know,
Yeah.
certainly there's a lot more. There were students at the school, if memory serves, who were from out of state. So there are opportunities for other folks who are interested in finding out who they were and doing more work. It just happens that because the Harris sisters were the people they were, they left a legacy. So for example,
okay.
at the University of Rhode Island, in their archives, they have a number of materials relating to the Harris sisters, and those we've done, or members of the group who help us construct Harris sisters.
Okay.
Have researched in those archives.
Well, now, well, one more question. If you had your choice of more information that you could find, what would you like to find out about the Harris sisters, about Norwich? You hope somebody uncover.
I would be, what would be just terrific. I would love to find a journal kept by one of our Black residents in the 19th century to give us their perspective on what life was like. What was it like being a Black man, a Black woman in a community like Norwich in the 19th century? Because, sometimes you have you have a vision of what it might have been like, but getting the information, getting the reflections of people outside of the white community is very difficult. And this could extend to the Native American community.
Sure.
I'd love to have something of that sort that was a narrative of their life experiences in Norwich.
Yeah, I love it. And quite possibly that's out there. Because just the other day, I did an interview with a gentleman who was sleeping at the Hempstead House. Are you familiar with the Hempstead?
Yeah.
In New London. Yeah, he goes around the country. I always shout his name out. He's my guy, Joseph McGill, Slave Dwellers Project.
Really?
And what he does is he goes around the country sleeping in former slave quarters.
Wow.
And just recently, he was sleeping at the Hempstead House up in the attic, which is where their enslaved young man named Adam slept. And he shows that video. It's on the channel, everybody. Take a look at that out of Connecticut. And I guess the last question, because of your exhibit, would you like to be a part of the Connecticut Freedom Trail or that kind of thing?
Yeah, there are. We have worked with them.
On the Harris sisters, do you all have a permanent exhibit, or is it just during April? Because could somebody come down and see some information?
Well, what we have is we have information in our archives,
right,
from the celebration of the Harris sisters. We have a lot of information. In fact, we were just talking about how to archive the Harris sisters information that we have so that it's more accessible to the public. But sure, in the library, there is a local history and genealogy room, and in there we do have information on the Harris sisters and on other individuals from Norwich.
What's the website for the library? How do people find you? That kind of thing.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
www. And it's Otis, OTIS,
right.
Library Norwich, NORWICH.org.
There you go. There you go. You got that right. Your memory not that bad. Not at all. You know that website, everybody. This is what we do at Strong Inspirations. I find these conscious people, they get dressed up too sometimes. This is a beautiful thing. So hit the subscribe button. It's free. I don't even ask no information. Let me tell you something, folks. You hit the subscribe button, all it means is that you like me. I like you already. You watching me, and I can feel it come through. And I get comments too. You know, some nice, maybe one bad one. I don't know. I don't even. And the bad ones I read just because.
Yeah.
But hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. And I really am not wanting to put a specific time because it hits my heart that I'm like, oh, now's a good time to share some history. And boom, there it is. So the notification bells get you notified as to when that happens, and tell somebody about Strong Inspiration. Don't keep it to yourself. I think that if you tell somebody that you will enlighten them, and now you and them could be on same accord as to knowing this history that we try to share here at the channel. And to you, my friend, I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule for coming on the show. And I say this, and I mean this with all sincerity, that I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Keep being who you are.
Well, and I hope if you ever get to our part of the world, you will make a point of coming to the library and visiting. We'd love to
I
have
tell you what, I will do, because I am on that East Coast every so often. And I really would like to come specifically in April when you have that event.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah,
that would be
that would be
terrific.
special to maximize the time. So let me work it out. Everybody, we'll say bye-bye. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.